I am Madison Timmons.
I'm Chris Soucy.
And we're paranormal specialists who live in the most haunted city on earth, Savannah, Georgia. Every day is Halloween in our line of work, so join us as we spin true tales of haunts, murders, and disturbing Savannah history. I'm Madison.
I'm Chris.
And welcome to the most haunted city on earth. Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the most haunted city on earth. My name is Madison Timmons.
I'm Chris Soucy.
And I'm JT Timmons. You just cut me off?
Whoa, hey.
You haven't been. Where have you been?
Yeah,
What do you mean?
I didn't even know you were going to be on camera today. You're never on camera anymore.
Oh, I'm on camera. I'm a star now.
You never want to be on camera.
Now I do. Things have changed. Things have changed. Yesterday, just it all changed for me.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. I looked in the mirror and I said, "This face is meant to be a star. Yep. It is meant to be seen."
There you go.
And then I did that Zoolander thing. Anyway,
no.
Let's talk about ghosts.
I can't.
Yeah,
you Zoolandered me.
I don't know exactly. Well, welcome, y'all. JT's here today.
I am.
So that's cool. Little surprise. But today we are going to be providing you a nice ghost mail for your palate.
Ghost mail.
Chris, do the thing.
Oh, you've got ghost mail.
Nice.
Yeah, we're kicking off the spooky season with some very fun ghost mail.
Heck yeah.
We just yesterday, when we're filming this, not when this is airing, we did the Haunted Savannah Paracon, which was super cool. We got to meet a bunch of people who, listen to the podcast, who have seen us on TikTok. So that was really awesome. I got to hear some really wonderful ghost stories and one very bizarre story where this, I guess the case of the nosy neighbor actually coming in clutch. Because
go ahead and tell it.
It was impressive, actually.
Yeah. So this woman, mind you, it was like 10 a.m. And this woman comes up with just so much energy. She had no idea who we were, first off. I think she was just excited to talk to somebody. But she comes up and she's like, I solved my neighbor's murder. And we're like,
dun, dun, dun.
And we're like, Did you murder her?
Yeah.
It's like, we're like, do tell?
Oh.
Yeah.
And we're all backing away.
Yeah.
Very
no, thank you.
slowly.
Chris, the story collector, is like, maybe I shouldn't collect this one.
Yeah.
Right. Well, she was just like very fiery. And she's like, yeah, when I saw that woman not put out her trash cans, we lived across the street from each other for 18 years. And when I knew she didn't put her trash cans out on Thursday night and they still weren't out in the morning, something's wrong. And she has some good for nothing son, apparently.
Ooh.
Yes. The neighbor had it in.
Raggy.
Yeah. She had it in for that son. She knew he was up to no good, and she actually introduced the son as a suspect. She actually introduced murder as because I think the cops were in their early stages of investigation, thinking that it might have been a suicide case. But she said, I saw her carrying in 4 bags of groceries the day before, and you don't buy 4 bags of groceries if you're about to kill yourself. I was like, that's really sharp. She had a lot of sharp observations about the whole thing. And then she went out and investigated, and she went out and found out where the son was, because the son had kind of like a weird alibi, and was like, no, I was here, or I was in jail, or something to that effect.
Yeah.
And she went out and found out, no, he was not in jail. Found people who saw him, found an accomplice, and gave the list of the accomplice and suspect to the police, and the police did arrest the son, and of course he got 3 consecutive life sentences because he had bound her, which in the state of Georgia is an automatic death penalty if you bind somebody before you kill them.
But
Really?
The judge cut him a deal.
And the judge cut him a deal.
They
no
always
trial.
do.
Well, because he was singing like a canary in her words. So
And so the ghost part of it was that this woman said that she never really spoke to the neighbor, that they knew each other, but they knew each other as neighbors, but they were not, on a lot of conversation. And she said it was because she really didn't like the son. But when the case was cracked, when the son was arrested, she actually heard her neighbor saying like hello from across the street, and she felt that was her neighbor signifying her appreciation for for the killer being caught, and for she was an animated storyteller,
Very.
and
wow,
it was a very interesting and intriguing story.
she heard the ghost.
Yeah,
like, oh,
Yeah.
that's so sweet. Debria, cue the Full House music. Actually, don't. It's copyright, so we'll go.
That's not copywritten.
Nope.
Yeah, it was just the most banana story
It
at
really
10 o'clock
was.
in the morning, and we were just very jarred.
yeah, just trying to keep up with it too, because
Yeah.
it was she had all the details down. We do not, because we only heard the story once, and it went by very quickly.
Yeah, but she did say, though, that the detective who was assigned to the case actually showed up at her house and was like, I want to know where you got all this information and how you solved this.
Right.
Wow.
And so apparently, and I told her, I was like, you should have been a detective.
She
You
should
missed
have
your
been.
opportunity, apparently, because she's very
Dang.
good at it.
Right.
So I guess
Do we have this lady's information?
no, she just
No,
walked
she just-
away
she
after.
just
walked away?
Yeah.
She came in, it was like a hand grenade, and they're gone.
Oh my gosh.
And so,
Yo.
if she's listening to this, come back so we can hear. So we can have you tell that story again, because we definitely did not do it full justice, but it was absolutely astounding, and that did happen in Savannah apparently. So, very crazy.
Yeah.
So that was our day yesterday.
Yeah. Well, that was just a portion. Lord.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had other people come up, share their ghost stories. Very interesting. We urged them to write in ghost mails. A couple in Hinesville came and told ghost stories, and how they became ghost enthusiasts. How they became parajunkies. How they got bit and found
awesome.
themselves looking under every rock for ghosts and ghostly things.
And
I love that.
yeah, and Chris actually was familiar with the ghost that he thinks is
Yes.
haunting their house, so that was fun.
They
What? Oh, now you got to tell this story.
Yeah, it was
Well, so,
crazy.
they were telling me that the man was saying that he had seen this woman in the house, and noted the hair, and was able to identify and thought it was his wife or his partner going through the house. And while he was describing it, I was like, I used to hear this story a lot in Hinesville. Yeah. And it turned out that's where they live. They live in Hinesville. I was like, do you live down 84 towards Islanders? It's like, yeah, that's where we live. And I was like, oh, there was a story of an Army captain who shot his wife. And the wife had been seen walking through that whole area. There was like a trailer park area and a stretch of road where they would see her just walking down the road.
Wow.
And it was like this, ghostly woman that was oftentimes seen. I was like, that sounds just like those experiences. And of course they were immediately like, oh.
Well, yeah, because they happen to live in a new development that
Right.
was built literally right next,
there. Yeah.
right on where that area was. So that's,
Wow.
it's crazy. So yeah, it was a fun time though. If you missed out, that's okay. You can still send ghost stories, and we're happy to read those. And that's what we're going to do today.
That is what we're going to do today. You want to thank the new pair of
Yes.
junkies just right quick?
Yes, I do. Alrighty. So we want to thank Lindsay Waffle, which is such a fun name.
Yes.
Sounds like a sitcom character. Lindsay Waffle.
Lindsay Waffle. Yeah, it does, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It really does.
And then Melissa Ducate, Destiny, Jen Merck, and Angie Fenton. Thank you guys so much
Woo,
for becoming
woo,
Para Junkies.
Yes.
Yay.
And being a parajunkie is great. You should definitely become one if you are on the brink. And it really is just kind of like a fam. Like we talk back and forth with everybody and share stories, and it's just really, it's a good time. It's a really good time, and they get ad-free stuff. And actually, Ultra Pair Junkies, which are our highest tier, are getting a new set of surprise merch.
Yeah, spooky surprise for the spooky season.
Yes. So become a Pair Junkie if you are thinking about doing it, because you'll never see another ad in your life.
Yes. And so much better than Netflix, right? Don't you want to listen to us all day instead of watching Netflix?
Well, don't watch Netflix while you're driving.
Don't do that.
Listen to podcasts. Don't drive
without ads, because who
Without
likes to
ads.
be interrupted in the middle of their story?
Like I recently saw the CarPlay. You know those the displays in cars now have the Netflix. I saw the Netflix logo, and I'm like, who's driving?
Maybe for stand-up? I don't know.
Have you ever been in a Tesla?
Oh yeah.
I'm pretty sure you can do that in a Tesla.
Yeah.
It's
I would believe that.
I don't know.
Absolutely.
I don't know.
I wouldn't want to, but don't do it.
I'll ask my mom.
Yeah, you
I'll
gotta
be
ask
like,
your mom.
And I could actually see like listening to your favorite movies or movies that you really know, but if you had it on the screen and I'm driving, I'd be like, oh.
Yeah.
Right? I feel like
Yeah.
I'm already so stressed when I drive. I'm like, that is a lot. I can't even focus. Like, I'm one of those people when I'm driving and I don't know where I am, I have to turn the music down so that I can see better.
Everyone does that.
Like, no, not everybody. No, there was a TikTok.
Maybe everybody does that.
I saw a TikTok actually 2 days ago making fun of the fact that there are two types of people: the people who have to turn down the music to see better, and then the people who can just drive normally.
That's just your brain going, okay, divert from audio into visual.
Yes, I have to put myself into manual, and I'm just like...
That's funny. All right, everybody, do not watch movies while you drive. We have enough ghosts. Let's do it.
Yes. Okay, so we're going to start out our ghost mail with a very wonderful title to this.
Oh, wait,
called...
we didn't talk about Thursday. Just real fast.
Thursday. This is Tuesday when you are hearing this. So in 2 days, the Parajunkies are going to be getting a live stream from us. We are going to be in an undisclosed location in Charleston, South Carolina.
South Carolina. Beautiful, haunted.
Yes.
It will be disclosed, obviously, when we're there, but...
Right.
Yeah.
No.
We're not gonna be, guess where we are?
You don't know, but it's haunted.
That would be weird.
All right,
Weird.
let's ghost mail it up.
Okay, yeah, we're going to do that, though. So if you want to see us live stream and investigate and do ST's methods, become a Parajunkie. Anyways, so this is going to kick off with my favorite subject that I've seen in a ghost mail in a bit, an offering for Faye Daddy.
Oh, boy. That's the title?
Yeah.
Excellent.
So I have access to the ghost mail account, and so I see a lot of when these emails come through, and I just see their titles or their subjects come through. And when this one popped up, I was so excited. I was like, I'm not going to read it first because I really want to know what my offering is as a surprise. But thank you.
You are the Faye Daddy.
Thank you. Welcome
Faye
to the
Daddy.
altar of Faye Daddy. Anyway, so... Hey y'all, it's Kayla here. Again, I have a story for Faye Daddy TM. Thank you. I will trademark.
Wait,
Faye
she
Daddy.
trademarked
She did.
I love it.
About something that happened with my son a few months ago. I was listening to the Faye News episode and was reminded of this incident that I have brushed off at the moment. Half brushed off at the moment. Earlier on in this year, my husband and I took our young sons on their very first camping trip. We checked into our campsite kind of later on in the evening and noticed we were the only ones camping in the area designated for tents. Across the field, there were plenty of people camping using campers and RVs. This campsite was by no means the wilderness. There was a lake and we were almost right up against the trees, but they were sparse. And you could see the main road in the distance from where we were. The next morning after breakfast, my oldest son, 4 years old, started collecting pine cones and setting them on the base of a nearby tree. I did that as well, but I'm also Faye Daddy. So I asked him what he was doing, and he said he collected all these pine cones for the fairies. My first thought was, yeah, don't like that. But just shrugged it off because he was my kid. He's a kid. I told my husband about it and explained to him fairy lore, more specifically Irish fairy lore, and the challenge or changeling. My husband has learned to express interest when I go on spooky rants, but he never puts much stock into them. The thing that kind of bothered me about the whole thing, besides my child seemingly offering gifts up to the fae, is that I don't know how my son knows what fairies are or where he would have learned that. He had never talked about fairies before this or since. Up to this point, my son had never attended daycare and had yet to attend school. I'm a stay-at-home mom, and my family all live in a different state, so there is never a moment where he is not with me. I always watch whatever shows he watches with him, and I don't ever recall us watching anything to do with fairies. He is a typical little boy obsessed with monster trucks and construction vehicles. And even though I like spooky stuff, I don't watch spooky/lore type shows around my sons. And I always wear earphones when listening to you guys. I could just be reading into this, but I will say there have been many instances where my son will say something, and both my husband and I will have no idea how he knows any knowledge or whatever it was he was talking about. We're both convinced that this isn't his first time on this earth, and I'm just waiting for the day he looks at me and says, "Mommy, this isn't my first life." LMAO. Anyway, thanks for reading my story. It's not the same level of most of the stories you guys usually get, but I thought it was interesting and a bit of a head scratcher. Thank you and keep up the awesome work.
Yeah.
So don't compare yourself to the absolutely wild stories that we sometimes get, because honestly, that is just as equally interesting and thought-provoking. Because it's very true. Children are oftentimes the number one people who are going to encounter the fae because they are so open. They're so accepting of anything that doesn't look normal. Because if a fae shows up to an adult, adults are going to be like, I am seeing things.
Yeah, they'll process it out.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And so children are like, cool, fairy, and so it's very possible that the fae might have approached your son in this campground, which it doesn't have to be just like a super heavily dense wilderness.
Any green space will do.
Yeah, exactly. And they approach the son, and it's just like, hey, we like pine cones around here. These fae like pine cones. And so and maybe he was they were trying to befriend your son or something like that, and they're like, hey, if you bring us these pine cones, we'll give you something. We'll give you a treat or a reward or a surprise.
And don't look past the idea that being as open and receptive, that your son isn't receiving story time from ghosts, that there aren't spirits just telling him things and telling him information. There's this concept of a cosmic consciousness, a consciousness of a single well for all of human knowledge, and being able to tap into it or being able to be exposed to it. Usually, the younger you are, the more likely you are to have access to just this free-range knowledge that you can just sort of consume. And a lot of people think that that's what's happening rather than reincarnation. It is the ability to tap into this pool of consciousness, and now you can think and have thoughts and memories of other people because it's all being collected like in a giant database somewhere, and you can kind of plug into it. But as we grow older, we lose access. We forget the password. We can't get to that database. So there are lots of different ways to suggest the knowledge came to your child. It can be a direct source from fae who have contacted. It could be a loving relative who comes and tells bedtime stories that you can't hear because it's just for the child. And it can be just tapping into past lives or into a cosmic consciousness.
It's so go ahead.
I was just gonna ask the listeners who else got the visual when listening to that story of Pennywise in the sewer looking at little Georgie like, hey there, Georgie.
Oh,
and,
God.
like we like pine cones.
Bring me a pine cone.
Bring me a pine cone. But yeah, well, and it's also not negating claircognizance as well, which is a very it's not the most common Claire ability that people can have, but it isn't uncommon. And your son just might be showing early signs of having claircognizance, which is literally just the ability of knowing information that you shouldn't typically have knowledge of. So maybe, encourage that gift and see where it goes if he seems receptive to it. I know he's 4, but but still.
It's and it's so strange because there's an equal level of terrifying because there's things you don't want a 4-year-old to know.
It's true,
and it might be on tap. There are ideas. My own child has had memories at 3 years old of being murdered, and talked about it, and it was very disturbing. It was like, well, I don't want to bring up that. I don't want to.
I do not want to have this conversation.
I don't want that to be something that is readily available in your brain. And in time, there was no memory of those discussions. Because they were able to actually recall 2 very specific, different past lives, and speak about it, at length. But it kind of it loses its luster when it's like that's a terrible. That's a terrible thing to remember, and I don't want you to remember that.
If y'all want to see that episode, we actually covered that story, and I believe you can just probably type in Albert Fish, and it'll come right up.
Yes.
Also, if it makes you feel better, I was also a child that offered things to the Fae. So it's
and it didn't affect her in any way.
I turned out totally normal. Yeah, actually, there's a tree in my backyard of my parents' house. It's currently still there, and my dad put a gnome inside of it. So that's so
gnomes protect.
I'm not the only one who picked up on something from this tree. I'm just saying, but. Yeah, I used to leave like little gifts by the trees and stuff, and I'm like, for the fairies. But I didn't know what I was doing. Anyways, so alrighty. So on to the next one. So thank you for sending that in. Always enjoy a good Fae offering. This next one is just entitled Ghostmail.
All right. I like them. I like them when they're like
Direct.
presents.
Yes.
When they're like presents, you don't know what's inside of them.
Right. Hi, my name is April. I live in California. I've been listening to your podcast for a few months now, and I really enjoy listening to your takes on people's experiences.
Thanks, April.
Yeah, thank you, April. I'm sending in my ghost mail to see what you think about it. I have always had what I think are dreams about ghosts. This specific dream is really close to my heart. This was in 2011. My childhood friend Jennifer was pregnant with her first child, and she was about a month away from her due date. The night of February 13th, I had a dream about Jennifer delivering her baby. I was at the hospital with her, and the staff was taking her into an operating room to deliver her baby. While waiting for her to deliver, Jennifer's uncle showed up. Jennifer was very close to her uncle, but he had passed away a few years prior to her becoming pregnant. When I saw him, I asked him what he was doing there. He told me he was there because Jennifer was going to have the baby. On the morning of February 14th, a little Valentine's baby, I woke up and I thought the dream was really strange, and it felt real. A few hours later, Jennifer texted me saying she went to her doctor's appointment and they would be inducing her because her blood pressure was high.
Oh.
I let her know what happened in my dream, and she said she believed that he tried to send her a message through me. Finally, on February 15th, not a Valentine's Day, baby, she delivered her son via emergency C-section. What do you guys think about my dream? Thank you so much for taking the time to read my story. Yeah, that's pretty cut and dry,
It's very direct.
The uncle definitely was just trying to, I think, let you know that the baby's coming. I think, spirits, when you're close to people, their spirits are very privy to that. And so it's not uncommon for people to have experiences of their best friend's loved one, coming to visit them to get a message through. Because sometimes it's easier to deliver a message that way than it would be to the actual person.
Right.
Because it's very possible that your friend,
amidst all the stressors and all of the things that are going on, especially, if there's high blood pressure involved. And, during pregnancy, and we hear this a lot, that women who are pregnant will definitely have heightened senses and the abilities, and it's possible that it might be crowded, that the uncle couldn't get through because all the other spirits are around. And so, being able to go to someone that he knows will be a bridge, who will pass the message along, even if it's just to say, I'm here, I'm present for it. I think that's a pretty, and we talk about the most common ghost story, which is on the night my blank died, they came to me in a dream.
Yeah.
I think this is a variety of that, where it's, spirits using the dream realm to communicate. And if they can't directly communicate to the person they're trying to get to, they will go to someone who they trust will get the message.
Exactly.
Over.
Yeah, exactly. And, it's definitely not unheard of, and you're not crazy, but I wouldn't be surprised if you wouldn't have more dreams of, these sorts, because it seems like you're a very open channel.
Absolutely.
For that sort of thing, which honestly is another this is apparently the theme of the episode, is Claire abilities, because, the ability to take messages through dreams is very common, because especially for adults, it's one of the more common ways, because we're so receptive in our dreams. You can't have barriers because you're asleep. And so it's like when you take Benadryl, you can't have allergies if you're asleep. And so, and so basically, it sounds like that's going to be your most common type of paranormal experience.
Yeah.
Not to say you wouldn't ever see a spirit or hear a spirit or whatever, but it sounds like you seem to be a very
There's
receptive person.
There's a door open now. You
Yeah.
know, because even if you weren't a receptive person before, the fact that connection was made, that certainly suggests that your where your dreams land in the landscape is close enough to the spirit realm to let them communicate that way.
Exactly. Well, and it's and I'm sure your friend also got comfort from that as well, knowing
Sure,
that their
absolutely.
loved one was aware and present for, the birth of their child. That's always a special thing for people,
Yeah.
to know that their loved ones are present in big moments in
Especially
their
big
life.
stressful, when it comes down to having to induce and going into C-section and all those things. C-section is a major surgery, so there's
It's a
lot.
horrible surgery.
Yeah, it's terrifying. So I do think that there's a lot to be said about family and loved ones who are on the other side really do want to be present for those anxiety and anxious moments.
Well, and it could have been too, just thinking about that, because of the fact that she was going into such a intense surgery, her main guardian spirits, her spirit guides, the people who are there to like protect her, probably they were probably a gate at that
Oh,
point,
sure.
and they're like, sorry, nobody else can come into the room. It's like, so Uncle had to make the nearest exit just
Right.
because because they're like, okay, hold on, everybody, like we gotta get her through this first, and then you can go visit. It's
Go to the adjacent.
go to the adjacent relative or
Right.
friend. So but that's a really awesome story, and you're definitely not alone in those types of stories, for sure. So this one is entitled Gender Reveal from the Grave and More.
Ooh.
Oh.
Okay.
Yeah.
Another
Baby
centric.
Right. Well, and it's funny because these 3 emails came in a row. So it's like,
What?
yeah,
Did they really?
yeah.
Oh, wow.
So
Goodness gracious.
apparently the baby topics needed to be addressed on this show.
Okay.
But
All right.
yes. So, hello. I have to tell you how much I love your podcast. Thank you so much for listening. We appreciate you. I'm not sure if you want us to say your name, but yes, if you sent in the email that says gender reveal from the grave or more, thank you so much. I have been binging it from the beginning. So you got a lot to go. It's,
By the time you hear this,
yeah, by the time you hear this, thank you. It's my go-to. I am in awe of all your knowledge and experiences. I have 2 stories to share. They are not scary, but are more feel-good stories. Okay, ending on a nice positive note for our Tuesday. That show that our loved ones are always around even after they pass. So story number 1. Sorry, it's a little long. We always like details. Never apologize for your details. Anyways, I wanted to share a story with you that happened in 2020. A little backstory. My husband and I struggled with infertility for 3 years until we were blessed with our first son in 2014. We knew we wanted to continue to expand our family, but unfortunately had 2 miscarriages in between 2016 to 2019. I'm so sorry to hear that. That's a very hard thing to go through. So naturally, we were ecstatic to find out we were pregnant in early 2020. Unfortunately, I started having symptoms of a miscarriage and expected it to be like the 2 miscarriages before. I was wrong. I ended up with terrible lower stomach pains, and when I physically picked up my son, I knew something was very wrong. I called my husband and told him to meet us at the emergency room in the neighboring town. We live in a small town with no hospital. When I was driving my son and I to the ER, I kept feeling like I needed to pull over. I pulled over and parked and instantly passed out. Oh. I have no idea how long I was out, but I came to with my son screaming, "Mommy," and crying. I called my husband and told him what happened, and he told me to stay there and he would come get us. At the ER, they found out that I was having an ectopic pregnancy, which is when the fertilized egg, that's very, very scary.
Yeah.
Is when the fertilized egg implants outside the uterus. And in my case, it attached in my left fallopian tube and caused it to explode.
oh no.
Oh my God. So essentially, I had a miscarriage and I was bleeding to death.
Oh my God.
Jeez, I'm so sorry. That is horrifying. I was rushed by ambulance to a large hospital and had emergency surgery with 3 blood transfusions. Luckily, they were able to save most of my reproductive system and me because ectopic pregnancies can be very dangerous. As I was recovering, my beloved grandmother passed away at 91. She was extremely feisty, an amazing cook, and loved with her whole being. A few months later, to our surprise, we found out we were pregnant. I was terrified the entire first trimester. I was close to 18 weeks pregnant. We were going to find out the gender at 20 weeks. And I had the most unbelievable, beautiful, and memorable dream. In my dream, I was in a very white space with lines of people coming and going, crisscrossing each other. I look up and a woman in a white dress and a red suit jacket stepped out of the line, and I kept thinking she looks familiar, but I couldn't place her. She looks right at me and holds out her hands. In one hand was a pink knitted baby hat, and the other had a blue knitted baby hat. But she put the hand with the pink hat behind her and pushed the blue hat hand towards me. I kept staring at her, and she looked at me in the eyes and shook her head like, "Do you understand?" I shook my head yes, and she turned around and walked away, disappearing into the lines of people. I woke up and told my husband about the dream and said I knew for sure our baby was a boy and everything would be okay. After describing the dream, the woman to my mom, she told me that was my grandmother, her mom, when she was younger. Later on, after looking at pictures, I confirmed it was in fact her. Grandma came to me to reassure me that this pregnancy would be okay and would be blessed with a beautiful baby boy. Fast forward, my husband and I were blessed with a beautiful baby boy the next January, and the pregnancy delivery was normal. She has never come to me again in a dream, but I know she is always there with me. What are your thoughts on the very white area in my dreams? I have always felt/thought that it was heaven or somewhere in the afterlife. Do you think spirits can take us up with them and then return us? So before we get into story 2, I do want to kind of address that story first.
Yeah. I mean, I would actually like to say, like, Nas said it best. Sleep is the cousin of death, right? And so that makes me think that just hearing the story, it's like, are dreams the best way for communication to happen
Oh, it
from the
absolutely,
paranormal?
it absolutely is.
Was Niles correct?
So
He's always correct when I talk about
no, it absolutely is. It's the easiest way for most people to be able to communicate and receive messages because, like I said, you can't. It's like Benadryl,
Yeah.
You can't have your guard up if you're asleep, and so people are oftentimes having these experiences, especially with loved ones. And I think it's also easier for spirits in general to communicate with us when we're asleep because they're having to put out less energy to try to get us to understand. And they usually can utilize symbolism and they can utilize images so that way they can really get the message across and not have to do it multiple times to get it through our bony heads. But what it sounds like to me is, so obviously we have never died in this life, so it's
Wait, what?
I know, right? It's crazy to think, but from what my understanding is that the astral plane has many layers to it. There are darker layers, there are lighter layers, and I personally am a believer that our concept of whatever heaven would be, or any place like that, is just another one of those layers. But I think there are spaces of the astral that are reserved specifically and only for spirits. And so it sounds to me like your grandmother might have brought you to a portion of the astral just to help you understand this moment, but also bring you that comfort because you for sure needed that after the experience that you went through, considering that being so traumatic and you're having so much stress. It sounded like she was able to pick up on that and was like, I need to make a big gesture here. So that way it brought you comfort. But that's what my take would be on what the white space would be is that's just a section of the astral where spirits can do their communicating, and like I said, this is all theory. Right. Obviously.
Wait, you're telling me it's not a direct science like TikTok will tell you?
I know, right?
Very true.
It's true. That's just what my take would be.
Yeah, and it's worth noting that given how close you got to death, puts you in a different category of
That is very true.
experiencing. The fact that you went through what would classify as a near-death experience, certainly a threat of death experience, might actually put you in a category where you could go. Because if you hear about people who have died but been resuscitated, they oftentimes talk about the white light. They oftentimes talk about going to a plane where they believe they've gone to heaven, where it's this, bright and white and light place where all the former relatives come and greet them with warmth. And I think that your ability to go there, or within the impact of your near-death experience, not everybody gets pulled to that place to have these communications. Mm-hmm. Spirits come to where you are dreaming. You don't go to where they are dwelling. Mm-hmm. That's the noted difference, I think, is that you ended up in what seems like a spiritual transient space for spirits. And intriguingly enough, seeing your grandmother in her youth, there's a lot of people who believe that we are given these opportunities to express and be expressed and inhabit any part of our life in order to re-experience, re-examine. So it's possible your grandmother was busy doing something else,
right?
that required that age of her being, and you were able to kind of appear at a time when she was busy as the younger self, and she was able to come over and communicate with you, and that's kind of amazing and wonderful. Mm-hmm. So I think that there is this idea of spirits traveling to us is the common form of communication for ghosts or for spirits. us going to them is kind of remarkable.
It is.
Because that means you've pierced the veil to examine or see or experience things. So I'm very interested in, and it may have been a one-time deal,
Right?
And it may have been dependent on how close to your near-death experience you were, a year out, 2 years out, 3 years out. That your access to that plane may be limited by how much life you live afterwards. So, I think that's a very fascinating story.
It is. It's a very fascinating story. And it also brings up a good point of, like, you're right, your grandmother might have been in a different situation where she was having to present as the younger self. But I'm also a believer that we can present in the afterlife as whatever we want.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
And that's why you see some people who present as like themselves as a child, or things like that, because that was the best time of their life, or that was when they felt the most themselves. Or some people choose to present themselves as them in their 20s. And I think that's a good representation of that theory as well, because it would be kind of crazy to think that we all have to present as our elderly selves, at the last moments of our, our lives. That too.
We talk about that a lot. Is our ghosts all bloody? If they died in this bloody accident, if they've been shot, do they have the wounds? It's like, well, no. Oftentimes they will present themselves as they sense themselves as, it's Neo in the Matrix. Like, this is what you think you look like.
Yeah. Well, it's also it's like, at least from my experience of seeing spirits, I don't see people wearing the clothes that you would be buried in.
Right.
And so,
absolutely not.
Like, thinking about that, like, usually I see spirits in what I just imagine is like their favorite outfit. It's
outfit that they look good in.
Like something that they feel represents themselves.
Yeah.
It makes them feel the most themselves, and I think that is how we eventually come to be when we pass on. Which is a cool thing to think. It's like, if you're gonna show up as a ghost, show up looking good. I guess. I'm
gonna show up comfy.
That's you.
That's me. Like what I'm wearing right now, my Florida State sweater and maybe some jeans or sweatpants and Converse or tennis shoes. It's nice.
Yeah.
It's nice. That's how I'm going to show up.
As a ghost.
Mm-hmm. Cozy
Ghost.
Fuzzy socks.
So that was the first story. So second story, I was pregnant with my second son, and the same one in the story before, and my father passed away suddenly. I was early in the pregnancy, but my parents did know I was pregnant. In fact, I put an ultrasound picture in his shirt pocket in the casket. Aww.
Oh.
My dad was the absolute best dad and the most phenomenal grandfather. He was so excited that we were pregnant again. Needless to say, I was devastated. Fast forward, when my son was around 1, we were up at my parents' house. My son was almost ready to walk, but hadn't taken his first steps yet. We were in the living room and trying to get him to show my mom how close he was to walking. And out of the corner of my eye, I see a figure walking from the hallway into the kitchen. My parents have an open floor plan, so you can walk right through the kitchen to the living room. The figure was wearing a white shirt and was roughly 6 feet tall. I didn't feel anything menacing. If anything, I felt more comfortable. A few seconds later, my son took his first steps and walked to my mom. I know in my heart that figure was my dad, and he wanted to be there to see his grandson take his first steps. I have never seen that figure again.
Aw.
P.S. Whenever I would rock my son, he would look up and out and smile, laugh, and baby talk to a certain spot. I would always say, "Oh, who is visiting today? Grandma Birdie, Papa Gary?" I just knew someone was there with us that I couldn't see, but my son could. Thank you so much for listening and taking the time to read and share my stories. Also, thank you for your hard work you put into this podcast. It is incredible. Much love, Ingrid.
Thanks, Ingrid.
Yeah, thank you so much, Ingrid. That's
thank you for sharing.
Yeah, both of those are just so lovely.
I know, right?
Like,
Dang.
It's stories like that just make you enjoy ghost stories, because it's I feel like a lot of times we get caught up in the concept of we have to make them gory and horrific and these right,
not me.
these traumatic experiences with a daemon or something, but it's a lot of times
the vast majority, vast, like 100 to 1. I mean, it's that simple concept of, how many people in your life have been brutally murdered,
right?
Versus how many have a loving family, how many experiences are devastatingly terrifying, and how many are hopefully full of love. Love is going to be the most powerful connection both in life and afterlife. So it makes sense that the spirits would use love as the tool that they can communicate with. I would imagine that in the last moments, you're not thinking. Hopefully, you're not thinking, "I'm going to get you."
Right.
Hopefully, that's not your last thought. Is I've got a list of people that I'm going to haunt.
That's me.
Yeah, well, yes. If you're keeping a haunt list, no judgment. You do you. But ideally, I think it's you spend your time saying, I want to be with the people I love. I want to say I love you, to all the people that I love, and then that becomes this wonderful purpose for the spirit. And it comes out in lots of ways, and we talk about all these ways often. Birds that show up. I know there are people who see like dragonflies or butterflies, and they know in their heart, white feathers, things like that. They know that is a communication from the other side. So I do think that we will, if we're open, those communications become clearer and clearer to us. If we stop to recognize, this is a message of love. It's probably so very commonplace that we overlook them. But everybody out there, take some time to think about those weird coincidences and those weird things that happen, or that strange time. When you're close to a wild animal, is fascinating. Like a bird that sits a little too close to the house, or
she dive bombed me yesterday.
Yeah.
I am so.
See, there you go. Those
Madison's
interactions.
grandma the magpie.
I needed that yesterday, though. Probably.
Oh, there you go.
I've been a little distracted. It's actually funny. To end things out, I was gonna leave you with the thought of just I think a lot of if you're pregnant or wanting to become pregnant or whatever, pay attention to your paranormal experiences because, or if loved ones show up, because, actually, one of JT and I's best friends, he and his fiance are having a baby, and we're the godparents. So we went to the gender reveal a couple weeks ago, and I was setting up, because I was the keeper of the gender, and so I was setting up the balloons, the game thing for them to pop because they're dart players and all that jazz. And after I set it up, this beautiful monarch came and landed on the balloon game, and I was like, "Oh, look how pretty that monarch is!" And one of the the soon-to-be mother's family members goes, "Oh, that's Aunt so-and-so. Oh, she came to see the gender reveal." And it's things like that where it's, you start to feel, I'm assuming I've never been pregnant and I don't plan to be, but, it's, I can only assume, you start to feel your loved one's presence more and more as you go further along down that journey. So if that is you and you're in that situation, because apparently this has become the pregnancy episode, is
I already have a title, Paranormal Pregnancy.
Yeah. Oh, that's Rosemary's Baby.
Alliteration.
But, it's pay attention to those moments, because I think that's some of the most special paranormal experiences that you can have, because it's only one period of time,
Well, and it is the truest miracle, period. People who scoff at magic don't think about incubating a life inside of another body, because just because we can explain it biologically does not diminish the fact that it is a miracle and that it's magic. It's pure magic. When you have the scientific explanation for something, it does not remove the miraculous nature of it. Just because we can explain it does not change the fact that it's magic. So it is important that you respect the fact that life doesn't just come from a bunch of chemical reactions. We could explain it all down to the minutest detail, and there's always going to be the mystery that eludes us.
Yep.
It's true.
And so, when you're carrying a life inside you, you're bound to be both a target and a beacon. So
For the paranormal.
Yeah,
it's
for the
true.
paranormal.
Yeah.
But yeah,
3 miracles in this world that God has blessed us with is childbirth, dogs, and macaroni and cheese.
absolutely.
Those 3.
I
Right
concur.
there, in that order.
Yeah, in that order. Okay. Well, all right. Well, on that note, thank
Enjoy
you.
some macaroni and cheese.
Yes.
The 3rd miracle.
Yes, it honestly is a miracle. But yes, thank you guys so much for sending in your ghost mail. If you have a ghost mail that you want to send in, you can send it to ghostmail@hauntedcitypodcast.com. Oh, also, something we forgot to mention in the beginning. We are on Cameo now, so that's pretty cool.
I don't know why.
No, you're right. Well, TikTok's probably why, but it's
You don't know why.
Cameo.
He's so humble.
He's so humble. People
Humble.
love you guys. What are you talking about?
He's eating a
If you
big
hire
slice
us
of
to
humble
say
pie.
happy
Humble
birthday
pie.
to someone, I will freak out.
Yeah. And so, well, if that
Goodness
is you
gracious.
and you would like to do that, Cameo invited us to be on their app.
We're on
So,
2 different spec. Chris and I, he's like, no way, what? No, why? And I'm just over here like, about damn time, Cameo, let's go. Working my tail off getting this show up.
So, yeah, if you want to have us wish somebody a happy birthday, a well wishes, anything you want to tell a improvised ghost story,
Boogity
have
boogity.
at it. Boogity woogity. And we can do that on Cameo. So you can find us there, which is pretty cool. But with that, my name is Madison Timmons.
I'm Chris Susi.
And stay spooky, y'all.